January 1996, Abilene, Texas. A journalist sits alone in his car when two children approach his window asking to be let in, but when he looks at their faces, their eyes are completely black. No whites, no color, just endless darkness. 29 years later, hundreds of people across America report the exact same encounter, the same terror, the same children who vanish without a trace. But here's what no one can answer. If this is just a story, why has no one who let them inside ever come back to tell us what happened? Abilene sits in the heart of West Texas, where the land stretches flat and empty under big skies. On January 16, 1996, the winter air was cold and dry. Brian Bethel had just finished watching a movie at the cinema on South First Street. He was a reporter for the Abilene Reporter News, or a man trained to notice details and ask questions. His job was finding the truth in stories. He walked across the parking lot toward his car just after 10 at night. The lot was nearly empty. Most people had gone home. Yellow streetlights made long shadows on the concrete. Bethel got into his car and turned on the small light above his head. He needed to write a check to pay a bill. The light was dim, but good enough. He sat there with his checkbook open, writing in the quiet. Then he heard a tap on his window. Two boys stood outside his driver's side door. They looked about 10 or 12 years old. They wore normal clothes, nothing strange. One was taller than the other. They seemed calm. The taller boy spoke through the glass. He said they wanted to see a movie but had left their money at home. Could they get a ride? It would only take a few minutes. Bethel felt something odd right then. Before he even looked closely at their faces, his stomach tightened. His hands got cold. It was the kind of fear that comes from nowhere, the kind animals feel before earthquakes. He could not explain it. These were just two kids asking for help. He started to reach for the door lock. His hand moved without him thinking. Then he looked up at their faces again. Their eyes were completely black. Not dark brown, not wearing sunglasses. Black like ink, black like deep holes. No white parts, no colored parts, just solid black from edge to edge. They did not reflect the streetlight. They did not shine. They were empty. Bethel's hand stopped. His whole body went stiff. Every part of him screamed to get away. The taller boy leaned closer to the window. His voice stayed calm and flat. He said the same thing again. They needed a ride. They would not take long. Then the boy said something that made Bethel's blood turn cold. The boy said, "We cannot come in unless you tell us it is okay. Let us in." The words felt wrong. Kids do not talk that way. The way he said it sounded like he was reading from a script, like he had said it 100 times before. His face did not move much when he talked. Neither boy blinked. Bethel looked at the door lock. His hand was still reaching for it. He had almost opened it. He had almost let them in without thinking. That scared him more than anything. Why had his body wanted to obey them? He pulled his hand back. The fear grew stronger. It filled the car like smoke. He felt like he could not breathe. The boys just stood there, waiting. The smaller one tilted his head a little, watching. Still no blinking. Still those black eyes. Bethel started his car. The engine roared to life. The boys did not step back. They did not look surprised. The taller one spoke again. His voice got harder. "Let us in. We cannot come in unless you say yes." Bethel hit the gas. The car lurched forward. He did not look in the mirror. He drove straight home, his hands shaking on the wheel. When he got inside his house, he locked every door and window. He could not stop thinking about those eyes. He could not stop thinking about how close he had come to unlocking that door. He was a reporter. He knew how to check facts. He knew the difference between real and fake. But what he saw was real. He was sure of it. And the terror he felt was more real than anything he had ever known. A few days later, he told his story on the internet. He posted it to a group that talked about strange events. He thought maybe 1 or 2 people would respond. Maybe someone could explain it. Within a week, 3 other people wrote back. They said they had seen the same children, black eyes, asking to come in, the same cold fear, the same feeling that something was very, very wrong. By the end of the month, there were 7 stories, then 12, then 20, all of them from different towns, different states, people who did not know each other, people who had never heard of Brian Bethel. But they all described the exact same thing. The pattern started to show itself slowly, like a shape appearing in fog. Between 1996 and 2025, and more than 500 people reported seeing children with completely black eyes. The reports came from all over North America. Some came from Europe. Each person told their story alone, not knowing others had seen the same thing. In 1998, a woman in Vermont opened her front door after hearing knocking. 2 girls stood on her porch. They were maybe 13 years old. They wore dresses that looked old-fashioned, like from the 1950s. They asked to use her phone. When she looked at their faces, she saw their eyes. Solid black. She slammed the door and called the police. When officers arrived 20 minutes later, no one was outside. No footprints in the snow. The woman said the air had felt wrong, too cold, like winter inside winter. In 2004, a gas station worker in Portland, Oregon, saw a boy standing outside the locked door at midnight. The boy knocked and pointed at the door. The worker walked closer to tell him the station was closed. Then he saw the eyes, black as tar. The boy's mouth moved. Through the glass, the worker heard him say, "You have to let me in. I cannot enter unless you allow it." The worker backed away. The boy stayed there for 10 minutes, just staring. Then he turned and walked into the darkness beyond the parking lot lights. Security cameras showed the worker backing away from the door. They showed him looking scared. But the cameras showed no boy. Nothing outside at all. By 2010, researchers tried to find patterns in the reports. Almost every sighting happened after dark between 8 at night and 2 in the morning. The children usually came in pairs, and sometimes there were 3, almost never just one. They always appeared to be between 6 and 16 years old. People said their clothes looked normal, but sometimes a little out of date. The thing that matched in every single story was the request. The children always asked permission. They wanted to come inside a house. They wanted to get in a car. They wanted to enter a building. And they always made it clear that they needed to be invited. They could not just walk in. Something stopped them unless the person said yes. The second thing that matched was the fear. Every witness described the same feeling. It was not normal fear, like being scared of a spider or a loud noise. It was deeper, older, like the fear animals have of predators. People said their bodies knew to run before their minds understood why. Some said they felt frozen. Some said they felt sick. One man said it felt like his soul was trying to leave his body. Police departments had no record of missing children matching the descriptions. No parents ever called looking for kids with black eyes. No hospitals reported strange patients. The children appeared and then vanished, leaving nothing behind. Scientists and doctors tried to explain it. Some said the witnesses saw normal kids wearing special contact lenses. These lenses exist. They cover the whole eye and make it look completely black. People wear them for costumes or to look scary. But the lenses cost money. They are hard to put in. They are uncomfortable. Why would random children wear them just to knock on doors at night? Other experts said the witnesses were probably half asleep or confused. Maybe they experienced sleep paralysis, a condition where people wake up but cannot move and sometimes see scary things that are not real. But sleep paralysis happens in bed, not in parking lots or at front doors, and it does not explain why hundreds of people described the exact same details. In 2012, a man named David Weatherly wrote a book about the black-eyed children. He collected more than 80 stories from witnesses. He interviewed them. He checked their backgrounds. Most were normal people with jobs and families. They were not looking for attention. Many were embarrassed to tell their stories. Some had never told anyone before talking to Weatherly. Weatherly noticed something else. The black-eyed children's stories matched old legends from hundreds of years ago. Stories about vampires who could not enter a home unless invited. And stories about demons who needed permission to cross a threshold. Stories about fairy creatures who had to follow certain rules. These old stories came from cultures all over the world, long before the internet existed. Then, in 2015, something new happened. A woman in Mississippi had a doorbell camera at her house. One night, the camera recorded audio of children's voices outside her door. The voices said, "We need to come inside," over and over for 4 whole minutes. The woman never opened the door. When she checked the camera the next morning, she heard the voices clearly, but the video showed nothing. No children, no movement, just an empty porch and those voices asking to come in. Audio experts studied the recording. They said it was real. No one had edited it or faked it. The voices were really there, but no bodies appeared on the camera. The woman moved to a different house 3 months later. Everything changed after 2008. The black-eyed children stopped being a quiet mystery. They became famous on the internet. Websites wrote articles with scary headlines. Forums filled with stories. YouTube channels made videos that millions of people watched. Everyone started talking about the children with black eyes. Before this happened, people who saw the children told their stories in whispers. They posted on small websites. They asked for help understanding what they saw. They wanted answers. After the stories went viral, everything got messy. New reports flooded in every day. But now, no one could tell which stories were real and which ones people made up for attention. In 2011 and 2012, hundreds of fake stories appeared on Reddit. People wrote them to scare others. They admitted later that they invented everything. In 2013, YouTube horror channels started narrating the stories with spooky music and dark pictures. The videos got millions of views. The line between real witnesses and storytellers disappeared completely. People who studied strange events gave up. They said the truth was buried now. Too many lies mixed with the real reports. One researcher said it was like trying to find one specific drop of water in the ocean. But the old stories, the ones from before the internet made black-eyed children famous, those stories stayed strange. Brian Bethel never changed his report. He gave an interview in 2013 and said, "I know what I saw. I know how crazy it sounds, but the fear I felt was not about their eyes. It came before I saw them. My body knew something was wrong before my brain did." A woman from Vermont who reported her encounter in 1998 wrote in an old email, "They did not blink, not once. Near the end, they spoke in perfect unison, like reading from the same script. They said, 'We need you to let us in.' When I said no and closed the door, I heard them laugh. Not kid laughs, something else." People who saw the black-eyed children described specific details that repeated across hundreds of stories. Many said the temperature dropped when the children came close. The air got 10 or 15 degrees colder in seconds. Some smelled something like metal or electricity. Others said all sounds stopped. No wind, no crickets. No distant cars. Just heavy silence that pressed on their ears. Several witnesses said time felt wrong during the encounters. A meeting that lasted 2 minutes felt like 20, or 20 minutes felt like 2. Some said they felt static electricity on their skin, like touching a TV screen. Others said their hair stood up on their arms. In 2014, a man named Lee Brickley investigated reports of black-eyed children in Cannock Chase, England. People in that area had seen strange children in the woods for months. Brickley interviewed witnesses. He wrote articles. Then he started receiving death threats. Someone vandalized his car. He said shadowy figures followed him at night. He stopped investigating and never finished his research. In 2017, Ina Podcaster planned a series of episodes about black-eyed children. She interviewed witnesses and recorded their stories. After she released the second episode, 3 of her guests called her. They begged her to stop. They said strange things were happening at their homes. Knocking at night, voices outside windows, dark figures in yards. The podcaster canceled the series. She deleted all the episodes. She never explained why. In 2023, a woman posted a video on TikTok. She said black-eyed children had knocked on her door the night before. She showed her doorbell camera footage, but the video quality was too poor to see details. Her post got 4.2 million views in 3 days. People argued in the comments. Some believed her. Others called her a liar. 1 week later, she deleted her entire account. No goodbye message. No explanation. She simply vanished from the internet. The most frightening pattern appeared when researchers looked at all the reports together. In 29 years, across hundreds of encounters, thousands of witnesses, no one who let the black-eyed children inside ever came back to tell what happened. Every single documented case ended the same way. The witness said no. The witness refused to open the door or unlock the car. The children left. But in all those years, across all those reports, someone must have said yes. The numbers make it certain. Someone opened their door. Someone unlocked their car. Someone let them in. They just never told anyone what happened next. Or maybe they could not. Today, there is no official investigation into the black-eyed children. No police department has opened a case. No government agency tracks the reports. Experts who study folklore call it an urban legend. Researchers who study strange events call it an unverified mystery. It exists in the space between belief and proof, between story and truth. New reports still come in. People post on social media. They write on forums. They record videos. Some are real. Some are fake. No one can tell which is which anymore. The internet made the mystery bigger and cloudier at the same time. The black-eyed children changed things in small ways. Some people stopped answering their doors after dark. Some installed better locks and cameras. Parents tell their children never to let strangers inside, even if they seem young and harmless. The stories became part of modern life, like checking under the bed or locking the car doors. Movies, books, and video games use the black-eyed children as monsters. They became part of horror culture. But unlike made-up creatures, these stories started with real people saying real things happened to them. The line between fiction and witness testimony blurred until no one remembered where it began. Brian Bethel still lives in Abilene, Texas. As of 2024, he stands by everything he reported. He rarely gives interviews. When he does, he sounds tired. He once said he wishes he had never posted his story online. The attention, the disbelief, the way it grew beyond his control, all of it weighs on him. But he will not say he lied. He cannot. He knows what he saw. David Weatherly continues to research strange events. In 2019, he published a new version of his book with more than 200 additional reports. He says the black-eyed children remain one of the most consistent mysteries he has studied. The details match too perfectly across too many witnesses for all of them to be making it up. Most of the early witnesses refused to talk about their experiences anymore. Several reported nightmares for years after their encounters. Some developed a fear of the dark they never had before. A few moved to different houses or cities. They wanted distance from the places where it happened. The places themselves are not special. Black-eyed children appear everywhere. Quiet suburbs, busy cities, rural roads, gas stations, apartment buildings. There is no haunted location, no cursed town. They show up anywhere, which makes the mystery harder to explain. If it was just one place, you could blame the land or a local story. But this happens everywhere. Researchers still do not know if any reports exist from before 1996. Some people claim the black-eyed children visited people in the 1980s or 70s, but the evidence is weak. Most stories only go back to Brian Bethel's encounter. That moment in the parking lot seems to be when it all started, or at least when people started paying attention. Questions remain. Why do witnesses all describe the same terror? Scientists cannot explain it. Why has no one taken a clear photograph? In an age where everyone carries a camera, the absence of evidence seems impossible. Why do the children always ask for permission? What stops them from just opening doors or getting in cars? And the biggest question, what happens if you let them in? Other strange reports follow similar patterns. People see shadow figures called the Hat Man. They report creatures that cannot touch them unless invited. They wake up unable to move, while dark shapes stand over their beds. Across cultures and centuries, humans tell stories about things that wait at the edges, things that need permission to enter, things that follow rules we do not understand. The black-eyed children also show how stories work in the modern world. The internet lets people share experiences instantly. A man in Texas posts something strange. A woman in Vermont reads it and realizes she saw the same thing. Before the internet, they never would have known about each other. Now, patterns appear that stayed hidden for thousands of years. Maybe the black-eyed children are real. Maybe they are something our eyes can see but our cameras cannot catch. Maybe they exist in a space between the physical world and something else. Or maybe they are real in a different way. Real as a shared fear. Real as proof that humans still sense danger beyond logic. Real as a reminder that we do not understand everything, no matter how much technology we have. 29 years have passed since that night in Abilene. Hundreds of witnesses have come forward. Millions of people have heard the stories. But we are no closer to answers than we were in 1996, and somewhere tonight, in some town you have never heard of, someone will hear knocking at their door. They will look through the peephole or open the door a crack. 2 children will stand there in the darkness. When the porch light hits their faces, their eyes will be solid black. The children will ask to come inside. They will say they need help. They will promise it will only take a minute. And every cell in that person's body will scream no. Every instinct will tell them to close the door and lock it. Most people listen to that fear. Most people say no. The children leave. The person survives to tell the story. But what about the ones who did not listen? What about the people who ignored the fear, who believed children could not be dangerous, who opened the door wide and stepped aside? They are out there somewhere. They said yes. They let the black-eyed children in. We just do not know where they are now, and we do not know what they became after the children crossed the threshold and the door closed behind them. That silence is louder than any scream. The question is not whether you believe the stories. The question is, if they knock on your door tonight, will you be strong enough to say no?